Actress Diane Keaton has died in California. She was 79 years old. Keaton's family made the announcement but did not specify a cause.
Diane Keaton's death was announced as a peaceful passing from pneumonia. But what truly occurred inside her body defied everything known about aging and illness. A doctor described a reaction unlike anything seen in decades, a mystery so profound that the full report vanished. What did it mean? Why did her body seem to fight beyond death, with cells acting strangely and temperature refusing to fall? Today, we uncover the shadowy medical details and hidden layers behind the beloved actress's final struggle, a secret that continues to haunt those who witnessed it. The unusual autopsy findings. The autopsy on Diane Keaton's body began under routine circumstances but quickly revealed anomalies that no medical professional expected. Though her death was officially attributed to bacterial pneumonia, the forensic doctors found tissue reactions unlike any standard case. When the white sheet was lifted, a pale silver mark, 7 centimeters long, caught the team's attention on her left shoulder. The skin there was cold, flat, and had a waxy texture, reflecting light oddly, hinting at something beyond typical post-mortem changes. Scattered near that mark were small, scaly lesions, situated where Diane had undergone surgery for squamous cell carcinoma decades earlier. Under the microscope, the skin cells did not appear to be dying as expected, but seemed oddly reactive, almost as if rerouted by an abnormal process. Preliminary notes mentioned cellular misfiring and abnormal inflammatory responses, but these observations mysteriously vanished from the official reports within an hour. No one could explain this strange tissue behavior, sparking unease among the medical staff. Opening her lungs brought even more puzzling findings. Unlike typical pneumonia cases, where tissue turns a dull gray or bright red due to infection, Diane's lung tissue exhibited a faint pink tint with glowing spots under blue light. This bioluminescence suggested enzymatic activity, usually only present in living cells. The endoscopist whispered, "It's like the body's still trying to heal itself," but no one responded. In the forensic notebook was just one ominous line: "Reaction pattern does not correspond with bacterial spread. Possible autoimmune response." Even more strange was the unusual temperature progression after her death. Instead of cooling rapidly as most elderly bodies do, Diane's temperature remained at 33 degrees Celsius for over 5 hours, a delay unheard of in typical cases. Experts recognize such patterns as indicative of severe metabolic or autoimmune irregularities. This contradictory evidence challenged the conviction that pneumonia alone caused her death, suggesting her body engaged in an unexplained biological resistance. This cluster of observations, the silver shimmer, the glowing lung tissue, the delayed cooling, transformed what should have been a straightforward autopsy into one filled with perplexing questions. Medical staff began to question if something profoundly different had occurred, something that surpassed ordinary pathology. The usual signs of infection were replaced by these biological oddities, leaving the team unsettled and doubtful about the official story. Her health leading up to her death also complicated the picture. Diane was considered stable, maintaining daily routines such as morning walks, social interactions, and regular communications with her family. To many who knew her, the announcement of pneumonia as the cause of death was difficult to accept, given her outwardly active lifestyle. This disparity between public perception and internal findings deepened the mystery lingering over the case. In the early hours at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, the weight of uncertainty hung heavy. No one could shake the feeling that Diane's body told a story her death certificate never would. This mix of unexpected clinical signs opened the door to speculation that the cause of her death was far more complex and layered than any simple infection. The unusual autopsy findings set the stage for an investigation marked by secrecy, missing files, and unanswered questions. As whispers circulated among the medical team, another troubling phase unfolded that would deepen the intrigue surrounding Diane's final hours and the medical documents meant to explain them. The vanishing medical report. Shortly after the initial autopsy, The forensic team prepared to finalize and upload their findings to Cedars-Sinai's pathology database, but an unprecedented event threw the process into chaos. Just as the report was about to be saved, the hospital's internal server mysteriously went offline for 45 minutes. When systems came back online, the file was empty. Only Diane Keaton's name and a timestamp remained. The detailed notes and preliminary conclusions had vanished without explanation. A nurse on duty recalled the bewilderment. "We were ready to send it, but the file was gone." The chief doctor avoided eye contact when told of the missing data, quietly instructing, "Don't include that part in the record," before leaving the room. This abrupt dismissal silenced further questions and cast an ominous shadow over the investigation. The pathology system was subsequently locked down, and the entire forensic team was ordered to halt all communications regarding Diane's case. Some technicians were abruptly reassigned, and others were required to sign strict confidentiality agreements, effectively burying any scientific discourse related to her autopsy. The hospital's official line remained that pneumonia was the sole cause of death, and no additional explanations were given publicly. Yet rumors began to circulate among medical professionals and insiders in Los Angeles, suggesting there was more beneath the surface than anyone was allowed to say. The news was reported by Deadline Hollywood that during the autopsy, it was noted that the body of Diane was even hours after death, unusually stable, a rare phenomenon linked to very serious autoimmune or metabolic disorders. But before these facts could get verified, all the related materials were sealed and designated family confidential. Journalists who were searching for answers received uniform replies respecting privacy, and thus the public was left with more questions than facts. The disappearance of important autopsy data and the silencing of those involved led to speculation that powerful forces had intervened to cover the uncomfortable truths. In the hospital corridors and the local newsrooms, whispers of cover-ups and unseen pressures were becoming stronger. The forensic doctor who performed the autopsy resigned quietly days later, only hinting that the case was different from any he had dealt with before. The imposed silence made the mystery even more profound, moving the emphasis from the proven medical facts to the obscure dealings that control the communication around celebrity deaths. Already, questions were everywhere. Was it really so terrible that the files had to be lost? Who was behind the data blackout? And even more disturbing, what truth about Diane Keaton's last condition was hidden from the public? The report's disappearance was taken as a sign of the larger mystery, the one that mixed medical doubt with the hiding of information by the institutions. It left all the parties concerned confused with questions, while a feeling was growing that something extraordinary was just a little bit too close. Behind the scenes, Diane Keaton's medical story was no longer just a matter of health history. It had turned into a secret that needed to be protected. As the official record quietly disappeared, Diane's long and complicated medical history offered clues that might explain the abnormalities seen at the end, hinting at battles fought long before her final days. Diane's medical history. Diane Keaton's health journey spanned decades, marked by battles with skin cancer and the lasting effects of treatments that altered her body in profound ways. In the early 1970s, while still establishing her career, she was diagnosed with basal cell carcinoma, a common form of skin cancer linked to intense ultraviolet exposure. At that time, Hollywood's lighting protocols were harsh, and sunscreen was rarely used, leaving Diane vulnerable to the damaging effects of halogen lamps and sunlight. Multiple surgeries followed, including the removal of cancerous lesions on her shoulder and cheek. These left faint scars, but, more critically, left her skin highly sensitive. Family members recalled that throughout the 1980s, Diane avoided direct sunlight, covering her neck and hands and often wearing wide-brimmed hats and gloves to protect fragile skin. A Beverly Hills dermatologist characterized her skin's reaction as akin to that of a newborn's, extremely vulnerable and prone to burns within minutes of exposure. To manage recurring skin problems, Diane underwent phototherapy sessions using ultraviolet light, an experimental treatment then promoted as a cosmetic miracle. Though it smoothed her skin, this therapy ironically left genetic traces called photomutations, subtle DNA alterations that persist long after treatment. Decades later, these mutations were suspected to contribute to unusual immune responses observed in her lung tissue during the autopsy. Her skin issues never fully disappeared. In her final months, Diane's skin looked almost translucent, described by some as resembling silver foil. She often wore gloves indoors because even the air seemed to irritate her skin. A UCLA dermatologist reviewing final photos linked this hypersensitivity to immune system abnormalities triggered by prolonged UV exposure and phototherapy. Diane's story also includes another hidden chapter, a prolonged struggle with bulimia in her 20s. She candidly wrote about it in her memoir, revealing a 5-year battle with cycles of binging and purging. Beyond the known physical consequences, bulimia can damage the nervous and immune systems, leaving survivors vulnerable to infections and slower to recover from respiratory illnesses, a factor that likely influenced her later health decline. Her medical records show that in 2023, she was hospitalized for acute bronchitis, but recovered quickly, despite the severity expected for someone with her history. Months later, her breathing difficulties worsened, requiring nightly oxygen. Though she appeared radiant at public events, subtle signs like coughing hinted at her fragile state. These details underscore how her body had endured continuous assaults over decades, silently accumulating damage. The convergence of these medical issues, inherited genetic damage, autoimmune vulnerabilities, and metabolic stresses, paints a complex picture of a body living on the edge between healing and breakdown. Diane's health saga was not one of simple illness, but of a life repeatedly confronted by its own fragile limits. Understanding this history is key to grasping the enigma revealed by her final autopsy findings. The shadows cast by Diane's medical past provide context for the mysterious and unconventional physiological events witnessed during her last hours, echoes of a lifelong battle that remained mostly out of public view. The impact of bulimia. Diane Keaton's health battles were not limited to visible scars or external ailments. One of the lesser-known challenges she faced was a prolonged struggle with bulimia nervosa. In her memoir, she openly admitted to battling this disorder for 5 years, describing a relentless cycle of binging and purging that profoundly affected her body. While many associate bulimia primarily with weight and body image issues, its impact on internal health can be devastating and far-reaching. Medical experts explain that bulimia creates long-term damage to the nervous and immune systems. For those who experience the disorder, the risks of respiratory infections increase, and recovery can be impaired due to the compromised immune function. This weakened defense mechanism meant Diane's body would have been less capable of combating respiratory illnesses like bronchitis or pneumonia. The link between bulimia and slower healing or complications in lung tissue would later emerge as a significant factor in her declining health. Records reveal that Diane was hospitalized briefly for acute bronchitis in 2023. Yet she exhibited a surprisingly swift recovery considering her previous health issues. However, months after discharge, she developed worsening breathing difficulties that required nighttime oxygen support. Despite these struggles, Diane maintained a radiant public image, rarely acknowledging her health problems. This contrast between external appearance and internal fragility added complexity to understanding her final days. During her final medical examination, Diane's lungs showed signs of repeated trauma and healing, such as tiny erosions and enlarged blood vessels. A doctor later remarked that her body seemed to have fought continuously, not just against infection, but against itself. This exhaustion of the body's natural defenses painted a picture of someone whose immune system was overwhelmed, partly due to past illnesses and possibly aggravated by the enduring effects of bulimia. Physiological changes are only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to bulimia's emotional and mental effects, as well as its psychological impact, which is extensively documented. The chronic stress resulting from bulimia eventually becomes the main factor contributing to immune system suppression and the increased body's vulnerability to illness. Psychologists suggest that long-term sufferers often face the issue of immune deficiency that hinders their recovery from various health problems. In Diane's case, this history might have opened the door for the strange and confusing reactions that her final medical assessments revealed. Diane's history of bulimia not only affected her mentally, but also physically, creating a chain reaction of vulnerabilities. We can assume that the combination of immune system suppression, frequent lung infections, and metabolic chaos probably put Diane's body through a tough time. A fragile condition like this might serve as an explanation for the unusual biological phenomena that doctors noticed during her autopsy. It was a clear indication that her death was not merely the outcome of one disease, but rather a result of the prolonged, relentless pressure of many years. Diane was recalled by her friends and colleagues as a person who dealt with her health issues in a discreet manner, not allowing them to influence her public image. She talked about her struggles without reservation, thus joining the small group of actors in Hollywood who were telling the truth about eating disorders when the stigma surrounding them was still very strong. This was a tough kind of honesty that, on the one hand, showed a strong character, but, on the other hand, might have hidden her health problems until very late. Diane's medical history has another aspect to it, with bulimia's effects on her lungs and immunity. It is one of the reasons why her body behaved in such a way that the doctors were confused. In this case, infection alone could not account for the biochemical and cellular mysteries that were uncovered during the post-mortem. This background compels us to think about how unseen injuries can determine the paths of both lives and deaths. While bulimia may have sown seeds of vulnerability, the exact nature of the biological responses that plagued Diane's final hours took medical speculation further, leading to complex theories about immune dysfunction and cellular misfires. Theories on immune response. The perplexing findings from Diane Keaton's autopsy sparked several medical hypotheses, attempting to illuminate why her body behaved so unusually at the end. One prominent theory involves a delayed autoimmune reaction, where, instead of protecting the body against outsiders, the immune system turns aggressively inward. In Diane's case, leaked laboratory reports from UCLA suggest a condition akin to autoimmune pulmonary necrosis, in which white blood cells attack lung tissue aggressively without any infectious cause. This theoretical autoimmune misfire could explain the rapid respiratory failure observed, which occurred without typical signs such as fever, swelling, or pain. Doctors noted that Diane collapsed suddenly in her final hours, with all vital signs deteriorating in what they described as a free fall. Despite remaining conscious and lucid almost to the end, her blood oxygen levels fluctuated unpredictably, and her heartbeat became irregular, reflecting a system in collapse. A second major theory connects Diane's long-term phototherapy treatments with a genetic phenomenon called photomutation. High-intensity ultraviolet sessions intended to treat her skin cancer in the 1980s may have left behind subtle DNA disruptions in her skin cells, known as photomutations. Studies from Stanford later revealed that such DNA alterations can circulate through the bloodstream and reach other organs, including the lungs, potentially triggering immune responses. Remarkably, during Diane's autopsy, her lung tissue glowed faintly under blue light, a bioluminescent residue that suggested lingering photochemical reactions in her cells. This strange light response matched the bioluminescence noted during pathological examination and seemed to confirm that her body retained a memory of the UV exposure decades earlier. If true, This would mean the light that once helped heal her skin ultimately returned in a haunting way in her lungs. The third theory relates to metabolic substance reactions during her final week, when Diane was prescribed a broad-spectrum antibiotic. Blood tests showed that she absorbed very little of the medication, likely due to long-term digestive disorders. This poor absorption may have generated rare toxic compounds in her bloodstream, worsening her metabolic state and undermining treatment efforts. Pharmacological analysis revealed elevated lactate levels in her plasma, indicating the body was, in effect, creating its own toxins. Clinicians observed that Diane's skin paled, her voice deepened, and her hands felt constantly cold. Photographs from an art exhibition just weeks before her death showed her walking slowly, appearing faded but still managing a smile. Doctors called her condition end-stage metabolic reversal, where the body's protective processes switch off, leaving it vulnerable. Though distinct, all three theories share a fundamental truth. Diane's immune system and metabolic functions were profoundly altered, destabilized by decades of battles with health issues, treatments, and lifestyle factors. No single cause neatly explains the biological mystery, but together, they paint a picture of a resilient yet exhausted body finally succumbing to internal chaos. Yet even as these theories offer potential explanations, none appeared in her official medical records. The contradictions between visible symptoms and documented causes reflect the ongoing tension between medical understanding and unexplained phenomena, especially when involving complex immunological responses. In the face of uncertainty, some doctors described Diane's case as one better left in peace. Still, her body's final baffling reactions remain etched in rare notes, missing samples, and hushed conversations, remnants of a biological struggle that defied categorization. These unsettling ideas about immune misfires and metabolic collapse prepare us to understand Diane's final years, years marked by precaution, solitude, and signs of a body quietly nearing its limits. Diane's final years and lifestyle. In the years before her death, Diane Keaton lived in growing seclusion and caution, her days structured far from the Hollywood image the world knew. Friends often saw her walking slowly, avoiding direct sunlight, always covered in wide-brimmed hats, gloves, and long sleeves, even indoors. Her skin had grown fragile, and even dim light caused discomfort, a condition linked to ultraviolet exposure and immune sensitivity. Her Los Angeles home mirrored this retreat. Kept neat but coldly austere, it was darkened by heavy curtains, mirrors removed, and the temperature kept at 18 degrees Celsius. "The colder it is, the easier I can breathe," she explained. Small personal touches, old photos, notebooks, and a piano hinted at a woman holding on to memories while guarding herself from the world outside. Though she withdrew physically, Diane stayed emotionally connected through quiet communication. Emails replaced public appearances, and social outings grew rare. In 2023, she sold her Malibu and Santa Barbara properties, keeping only her Brentwood home as a sanctuary. Generously, she donated much of her fortune to environmental and skin cancer research causes, showing awareness of her condition and a wish to help others. Her public appearances became sporadic. When she did appear, she seemed pale and frail, her trademark presence dimmed but unmistakable. Photos from this period captured a woman fading physically, yet still graceful. Her once vibrant voice grew soft, signaling a body worn down by years of illness and careful restraint. Her habits showed her deep commitment to protection. She avoided daylight entirely, choosing to move and work under soft lamps or night skies. It was both a shield and a symbol, a slow retreat into shadow that mirrored her understanding of what was coming. In August of the year 2025, Diane made a new will, leaving all her assets to her kids and skin cancer research. Her note in her own handwriting said, I've been living too near to light. Now I want to find out if there's peace in the dark. It was a silent acknowledgement of both her illness and death. Friends who came to visit her towards the end described her as tranquil, clear-minded, and generous-hearted. Even though her respiratory activity was very light, she seemed to be filled with calmness and as if she had decided to leave. Those who were around her could not recall any pain, just a soft disappearing, a last grin that seemed like a tranquil surrender. Although Diane was weak, her sense of humor and thankfulness survived. She sent letters of appreciation to her admirers and shared pictures taken in the early hours of the day, which were her ways to remember and link with the world. "Just to make sure that I was here," was how Diane expressed her situation, which was a poignant view of her end-of-life period. The depiction of Diane Keaton's final act is one of tenderness and strength that was seen through her frail and quiet life. Each of her habits and each of her decisions was a sign of her silent resistance to a world that was cruel to her weakened body. With the help of strictness, kindness, and elegance, she did not meet her end with dread, but rather with a tranquil surrender that was fully hers. She moved toward deeper silences and quieter reflections, drawing us closer to those who knew her beyond the spotlight. Close relationships and silence. Diane Keaton's personal relationships in her later years reveal a woman defined by both enduring bonds and profound solitude. Her past romances were marked by intensity and complexity, each leaving its own imprint on her life and health. From the early love and collaboration with Woody Allen to the fiery but brief connection with Warren Beatty, Diane experienced relationships filled with passion, intellectual exchange, and moments of vulnerability. Her association with Woody Allen, beginning in the 1970s, was formative. Their romance blended creativity with affection, making Diane not only a muse, but a partner in his early successes. Even after they parted, their collaborative ties continued, underscoring a lasting, albeit complicated, connection. When Allen's controversies arose, Diane chose to remain silent publicly, unwilling to tarnish memories of a chapter once filled with brightness. Another key relationship was with Warren Beatty, a magnetic figure whose presence stirred both admiration and emotional turmoil. Their time together was intense, filled with arguments, laughter, and philosophical debates. The breakup left Diane restless and insomniac, a period when her stress levels soared, potentially exacerbating underlying health issues. Later came Al Pacino, with whom Diane shared a relationship described as beautiful yet exhausting. Their connection, spanning years and deeply emotional terrain, ended quietly when Pacino declined marriage. Diane's decision to walk away reflected a turning point toward solitude and self-care. She later adopted 2 children on her own, embracing motherhood while solidifying her independence. Throughout these relationships, Diane increasingly valued privacy and quietude. She avoided public declarations, preferring instead to nurture connections away from the limelight. Her withdrawal from interviews and social events was not just about health, but a deliberate guard against the intrusion of media scrutiny. In recent years, she communicated largely through personal channels, maintaining a small circle of confidants. Her friendships with industry icons remained strong but subdued. Photographs lining her walls featured faces like Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, and Al Pacino, silent witnesses to chapters of her life that no longer played out in public. These images, bathed in dim light, symbolized memories preserved yet distant, a testament to relationships both cherished and left behind. Despite her seclusion, those close to Diane often described her as warm, witty, and gentle, qualities that endured even as her physical vitality waned. Her small acts of kindness, including letters and photo sharing, showed a woman deeply connected to her past and present, holding on to humanity amid isolation. Yet, silence was a defining theme. Questions about her health, love, and final days often went unanswered, replaced by polite deflections or quiet nods. This reticence fueled speculation and whispered conversations in medical circles and cafes alike, where those who glimpsed the truth grappled with the tension between respect for privacy and the need to understand. The interplay of enduring relationships and growing silence creates a portrait of a woman who chose solitude not out of bitterness, but from a thoughtful desire to protect herself and those she loved, even as mysteries gathered around her fading presence. These quiet bonds and reticence would frame the last haunting enigma of Diane's story, one that refuses to be forgotten or fully explained. The lasting mystery. Despite countless investigations and whispered theories, Diane Keaton's final secret remains hidden in silence and uncertainty. The disappearance of her medical records, sealed tissue samples, and a sudden data blackout left a void where answers should be. Doctors involved hinted at reactions beyond conventional pathology, phenomena no one could explain. It became the greatest mystery Cedars-Sinai Hospital had ever faced, steeped in intrigue and institutional quiet. Her death was publicly declared as bacterial pneumonia, but behind closed doors, the truth seemed far stranger. Files vanished, notes were erased, and a lead forensic doctor resigned after claiming the body he examined didn't entirely belong to any pathology he had known. His words implied a biological state that defied classification, frustrating every attempt to define her passing within normal science. Within the medical community, Diane's case became taboo, an uneasy topic whispered about but never officially discussed. Some who were there still wonder what truly happened under those cold hospital lights. The strange silver mark, the faintly glowing lung tissue, and delayed enzyme reaction suggested a process beyond known medical reactions, something that blurred the line between life and death. Adding to the mystery, Diane had participated in an unpublished UCLA study in 2024 about immune changes in former skin cancer patients. The results were never released, fueling speculation that the research uncovered something unsettling. Unofficial theories ranged from autoimmune misfires to cellular mutations caused by light exposure, deepening the sense of something extraordinary and hidden. A purportedly missing tissue sample had cell clusters of unknown origin. It was registered for just a few days before vanishing, and the supervising pathologist stepped down immediately. Officials claimed that the sample had not been lost, but their lack of communication about the laboratory's security codes only made people doubt even more. In the world of medicine, silence is sometimes interpreted as denial, and even louder than denial. People who knew Diane intimately describe her as a woman whose body appeared to be putting up a fight according to its own rules, a system that simply would not give up. The last phase of her life was depicted by some as a silent tornado of cellular strife, with each cell seemingly to recall light, disease, and resistance. She did not die the way a patient dies. Rather, it was an event of nature that posed serious questions about human comprehension and still did not yield to science. This unresolved mystery compels us to reconsider the limits of science and faith. The human organism of Diane might have reached the end, yet its hidden mysteries keep on resonating, talking between the realm of knowledge and the one of ignorance. The absence of the papers and the elimination of the notes create a void that seems intentional, nearly of a guardian nature. Even the world of cinema slightly lost its glamour after her death, as if it were the case with some stories that simply cannot be said to be finished. The last secret that Diane Keaton took along with her is not a loud conundrum, rather, the one that guarantees her being remembered not only as a part of film history, but also as a mysterious medical case. Diane Keaton's final days reveal a fragile body and a hidden battle beyond ordinary understanding. Her mysterious medical journey urges us to look deeper than official reports, reminding us that some stories remain untold. If you found this story compelling, please like and subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries behind the headlines, and watch the next video on your screen to continue uncovering the truth.